Hey guys, Chris again from ClassicVWBugs.com, and in this video I want to talk to you about the 1958 Volkswagen Beetle. Why do I want to talk about the 58? Well, we are in the end of 2017, so if you're watching this video, this is around December 2017, and we're heading to the end of the year, of course, and this bad boy is going to turn 60 years old, and to me, I think that is a milestone. And why is it a milestone? Well, 60 years old from the first big window Beetle. The oval window has been gone, and 58 came in, and the body style did change. And I'm going to go around this car and show you what happened in 58 and what is going to make it unique for the years to come. 58, 59, very similar Beetles, very little changes between those 2 years. But I got to say, a milestone, 60 years, 1958 Volkswagen Beetle. So if you have a 58, you're in great hands. You know, it's a beautiful car, it's a wonderful design, and it still keeps a lot of the early looks to it and a lot of the vintage style to it. And it's something you're going to want to cherish and restore back to its original status, or at least vintage status. So let's get behind the camera and I'll go around the car and we'll show you what it's all about. Okay, so here we are, 1958 sedan here. I have the ragtop on this car, which is really nice. We actually restored this car several years ago, even before I got my shop. It was right around the time I did get my shop, and we finished this car up. And what happened was the woman who bought it from us in California, she hardly drove it and threw it into a storage facility in the middle of the desert. And you can imagine inside the storage facility, this sucker was cooking. And when I saw it pop up on eBay, I said I had to save it because it was covered in dust inside the storage facility. So once we got it, I had a client sign on, and we made the changes to his taste, part of our Find a Bug program. But what you see here is a metallic green that we have on this car. It is not original to this car. This is more of like the almond green that they had for convertibles in the 50s. But in this era, 58, 59 had some beautiful metallic colors. You had diamond gray, you had glacier blue, you had atlas blue, beautiful colors that were very similar to this quality. And it was very unique. I mean, many people who, when I go to car shows, do not believe that the Beetles had metallic, but they did have them in the 50s. So let's go around the car and tell you about what happened and what changes happened in this time. So as you can see, the blinkers right off the bat moved to the top of the fender. Remember, the oval window Beetles, 56, 57, late 55 even, had the blinker down here as a bullet turn signal. Okay. In Europe, they still would have had the semaphores on the sides of the car that fly out. Okay, so they wouldn't have even had these yet. But in America, they had for safety standards, they moved the blinker to the top of the fender. So that's one feature that did change. Other than that, from the oval era, the hood was pretty much still the same. You still had a 4-tab hood. You still had the emblem down here. Okay, and you still had the horn grills, the same tail, same headlights. Okay, this is a Euro bumper that we have on this that would have had the towel bar bumpers. That's why the hole is blocked up over there for the support tube, as you can see. But from the front, basically, it's still very similar to an oval. So as we come down the side, as you can see, still the same kind of moldings. You still have the ice pick style door handles. From 56 to basically 59, you still had this style of a door handle. It was ice pick, basically almost like an old style refrigerator sort of a handle. Okay, so we'll open the door here. And in 58, they would have started with a two-tone door panel in America. For the American markets, you had a top piece here. You would have the middle piece, another color, and then below. So if you might have had on an Atlas blue car, you might have had a top blue vinyl here, more of a gray mesh style material here, and then another blue stripe down here. So this client opted to go for more of an earlier look, so we got rid of the two-tone for him. Seats also would have had the face of the backrest and the bottom face here. The top portion of the bottom rest would have also been, say, the gray mesh color that I mentioned in the door panel, and the sides and the back would have been, say, the dark blue or the other color. Okay, I've even seen dark green here, the gray mesh here, okay, that sort of thing, and you would have had the white piping, which was very common. So you had like a tricolor sort of thing going. But the big change in 58 was, of course, the dash change. You guys all remember the oval window dash did not have speaker grills here, a speaker grill here, or a grill on the other side of the speedometer. The radio moved up. Remember, in an oval, the radio would have been down here. So the radio moved up. You got your knobs that then were over here. Okay, the key switch is now over here as opposed to over here on an oval. The glove box door, of course, is much bigger in these years as opposed to the oval window, which was much smaller. You had the chrome trim that went across the glove box door from the radio. And then this is a rare clock that this client found for this particular car. There would have been no gas gauge or clock originally from factory. This is more of a dealer option, and you would have just had a small chrome trim piece here, and then the other trim piece over here. So interesting how they changed the dash in this period, and very cool dash, still very vintage to me. I mean, in this style, dash went all the way up to about 67, really, with just a slight change of the gas gauge coming in 62 over on this grill piece. So as we come around the car, come further towards the back, the window size still stayed the same from basically the early split window era. Even the front windshield actually got bigger in 58 as well. So this size windshield got bigger up until about 64. This was the same windshield, and you have it's still flat, but it's just much bigger for better viewing. The oval window windshield would have came down a little bit more here, so a little bit less viewing space. Quarter window stayed the same size, but the big difference in the 58 was the big back window. So basically, as I said in the beginning, now you're looking at 60 years for the first big window bug, which was in 1958, and that was the big change that they did back then, again, to make it more practical. Okay, the other change they did in 58 was they got rid of the W deck lid. Remember the oval window Beetles had the W that came up. They had more of a defining line that came up this way. And you see some of my pictures or past videos on YouTube, I'm sure you'll be able to see the W deck lid and the change that happened there. There was also a slight change in the Pope's nose, the way the light under here mounts, a little bit different from an oval, but overall it's pretty much the same shape. You do have to get a different seal for these years. From 58 to 63 has their own seal. Oval windows have another style of seal that you'll see if you do have an oval. But yeah, they got rid of the W deck lid. They kept the same taillights. Okay, so you still had these honeycomb or snowflake taillights that they offered, basically starting from late 55 in America or 56 in other places. And these taillights stayed on the Beetle until about till 61. 62 is when they went a little bit bigger and it's more squared light. So that is the back end of the 58 Beetle, and the big thing, like I said, was the big window. Now, as we look in the engine compartment, yes, this motor would have been still a 36 horsepower motor. We do have the original motor to this car, and the client still owns that motor, but he did want to upgrade to a 40 horse for a little more power. We put a big bore piston and cylinder kit on this. We also put an Abarth muffler just to give this car a little more fun movement on the highway, so to speak. But one thing I wanted to point out real quick in here was the 2-year detail that they put into the 58 and 59 Beetles are these drain tubes in the sides here. One here, and then one over here. It's the only 2 years that I know of that they put those drain tubes in the engine compartment. Prior to that, there was nothing there. After that, nothing there. Okay, as I mentioned before, this was still an era where they had no fuel gauge that was over here. Some people do revert to the later style. They'll put a later style gas tank in and get the fuel gauge. The hole is cut, for the fuel gauge to go in. There is a square there in these early models, so you could put that in if you'd like to. But if you don't want to go back that way and you want to stay original, you will need like a reserve. They have a reserve fuel tap here. If you don't, this is an extension that we buy, and we kind of mounted to the parcel shelf. These are new on the market lately, and I don't know, they're pretty cool. I mean, not the greatest. They lost their label. I mean, they used to have a nice mounting here that had the labels on it of when you were in reserve or not in reserve. But this extension, what it does is it attaches usually to the tube, the black tube that comes through the firewall. But these new accessories here that we buy shoot straight through the firewall and attaches right to the fuel tap. This is what you would have had in 58 to up until basically 61. Without a fuel gauge, you need a reserve lever to kick over once you're running out of gas. Okay, so that's a basic generalized overview of the 1958 Volkswagen Beetle, and I just quickly showed you some changes that they made to this year. And it was a big change to Volkswagen. It was more practical in their mind, and it's not so much about the overall look of the car, but to make it more practical and as time was moving on. So 60 years old in 2018, and I think it's a milestone. It's the first big window Beetle, and so if you get one of these, be prepared to see some value increase over the next few years. They're already increasing very nicely, and if you have one, keep it. All right, if you guys have any questions, Chris at classicvwbugs.com, or visit my website, www.classicvwbugs.com.